It's time!
What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin' Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how are you today, man?
Doing good. We had a little bit of a smoother intro here. Our platform is coming up with new stuff all the time. Shout out StreamYard. But last week, a little bit of a fumble on the opening. All good, though. I thought it was kind of funny. But here we are, back again, learning our platform every week. And yeah, all in all, just excited to talk about some fights. How you doing?
Likewise, excited to talk about some fights. We got UFC Fight Night, Emmett versus Murphy, Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy. It's always exciting to see Josh Emmett back out. It's my bald bro over there, but it's a decent card, right? It's an Apex card, and as time keeps moving on and we get further and further away from the COVID pandemic, the Apex cards just seem to get worse and worse. There was a time and place when those were championship quality cards at the Apex, and now it's just kind of middling out. I want to point something out, though. No matter how high level or low level the card is, if Vanessa Demopoulos is fighting, she's going to be like one of the first or second fights on the prelims. She's way down at the bottom. She's done that on pay-per-views and at the Apex on these like small low level cards as well. I think it's kind of funny that like she doesn't really get any shine, and there's guys with way less of a name than her. She is kind of a name at this point, right? Like everybody recognizes her from jumping in people's arms in her post-fight interviews. She's had some success, and I'm a fan of hers. It's just kind of funny that she's always way at the bottom, no matter what kind of card it is. Yeah, I think we're just going to do the main card this week. So if you want to jump right in, we can start those picks.
All right.
Yeah,
you first.
Robert Valentin versus Torres Finney. I got Torres Finney in this one. Torres, I think it's Torres. It's an interesting name, Torrez, for anybody just listening on Spotify. So I think it's Torres. But there's a guy coming to the UFC with a lot of heat. A couple of finishes, 2 finishes on the Contender Series, 3 wins on the Contender Series in total, and a lot of finishes outside the UFC as well. He's fighting Robert Valentin, who last time around lost to Ryan Loder by TKO and had some success pre-UFC, 10-4 record overall, as opposed to Finney's 10-0. But getting KO'd by Loder is not a good look. And Torres Finney, it's kind of surprising actually because, to have 2 finishes on the Contender Series, 3 wins in total, and then to get signed, usually 1 finish gets it done, but. Anyways, Torres Finney, a guy coming in with a lot of heat, and I'm going to go with him and go with the people on Tapology. He's a minus 225 favorite, and 86% of the votes are coming in on him with a majority by KO, TKO. So, I got Torres Finney, and I just want to say shout out Thomas Manzanero. Finally, I can catch you guys live. It's good to have you here in the chat with us, Thomas Manzanero. How you doing, pal? All right. And now our very own Tom, what do you?
Yep, sorry to have cut you off there, but I'm looking at this one, and I think I'm going to have to go with you with Torres Finney. He's got, I think, on his last five finishes of the Contender Series, he had a decision here, but knockout, rear naked choke, submission, TKOs. This guy can get it done in a variety of different places. Been a champion at some past affiliations that he's fought with. Robert Valentin, Robzilla. Coming off that loss 7 months ago against Ryan Loder by TKO ground and pound, minus 225 Torres Finney. The majority is on him at Tapology. I think all signs are pointing to him. He is gonna, have a severe height disadvantage, but he not that much when it comes to reach. So I think that's going to open up some more potential body shots for him. Eat up the body of Robert Valentin, get in close, some dirty boxing, and if he does go to the ground, I like his ability to get that ground and pound and sneak for submissions. I think Robert Valentin is a little bit more on the side. If you just look at some of these wins here, you got a submission to strikes, a submission rear naked choke, submission rear naked choke. He's got some subs on his record here, but not very, should we say, intricate submissions. So I think for those reasons, I'm going to go with Torres Finney to get this one done. I think he's just a little bit more of a well-rounded fighter. And that leads to him just having a little bit more options when it comes to the ring. And again, I think in the UFC, they want to start these cards, especially maybe not especially an Apex card, but they want to start the cards off with a bang a little bit. This is the UFC on ESPN, so it's not necessarily, going to have additional eyeballs, but either way, I think Torres Finney is primed to go out there and get this one done. Another fight that is really interesting coming up next on the card, GM3, Gerald Meerschaert taking on Brad Tavares, a battle of the olds here, both at 37 years old. 37 and 3 months. Their birthdays must be 3 days apart, right? 2 weeks, 1 day, 2 weeks, 4 days. So basically, I don't know. Is there a term for people who share a birthday twins? I don't know. But listen, two guys who've been around the block a little bit, and both have solid grappling. GM3 probably has a leg up in the submission realm. Brad Tavares probably a little bit more. I want to say that he's a little bit more durable on the feet, but I'm not so sure that that's true. I feel like GM3 is a little bit more of an intelligent fighter, but also there's plenty of outliers that might say otherwise. You look at some of their previous competition, Jung Young Park, split decision loss. That's not a bad loss. Lost to Gregory Robocop Rodriguez. Not necessarily a bad loss. Got the win over Chris Weidman. Not necessarily a great win. And then you lost to Bruno Silva and a loss to Dricus Duplessis by decision. Just a lot of up and down for Brad Tavares. Hard to reliably pick him on any area of his game, whether his chin's going to hold up, whether he's going to fight intelligently, whether he's going to go to the ground, if he should go to the ground, stand up, if he should stand up. I think he's predominantly a kickboxer. GMC probably predominantly a grappler. So still interesting matchup. I'm not sure where I'm at in this one. Minus 250 on Brad Tavares, and Tapology has 71% on Meerschaert. I think I'm going to give the edge to Meerschaert here at the plus 195 underdog at those odds. I think he's had a little bit better of a 5 on out. His loss to Renner to Renner, arm triangle choke. I think we're both of us have been really impressed with RDR, and we're excited to see him in the UFC. So I don't know how to hold that too much against him, especially considering Brad Tavares is not of the caliber of RDR. I think GM3 just might be a little bit more technical. We've had some wins there, over Edmund Shavazian and Brian Barberena. Brian Barberena, not the best either, but I think Brian Barberena is probably just a touch below Brad Tavares, which makes me think Gerald Meerschaert might be a touch above Brad Tavares. I don't know. That maybe is crediting Brian Barberena a little bit too much or discrediting Brad Tavares, but you don't know what you're going to get with Brad, and I think GM3 is a little bit more consistent. So give me GM3 to get this one done. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going with GM3. It's interesting because GM3 gets paired up against a lot of hot prospects. RDR, even though he's a little bit older, hot prospect. He has lost to Joe Pyfer recently as well. He has that bad loss to Hamzat a couple of years ago. GM3 is a guy that gets set up a lot, and then he gets rewarded, and I think that this is a rewarding fight. I don't know why Brad Tavares is minus 250. He does have good takedown defense up against the cage. He's really good at scooting his butt out of places, getting somebody off of his seatbelt, and preventing takedowns. But I think the GM3 is going to pursue them so heavily. He's really going to be attacking the single leg of Brad Tavares, looking to take him down and strangle him eventually. I think that he's going to find it. I think the GM3 is one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the UFC, or, was at one point. Maybe the game has surpassed him a little bit. And he's lost a lot of grappling outside the UFC as well. He lost to Craig Jones pretty recently, although Craig Jones is probably the best BJJ guy in the world. Anyways, real quick about Craig Jones. I don't know if this is an April Fool's joke or not, but he's allegedly grappling against Gable Steveson. He posted that. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. But anyways, I'm going to go with GM3. I think he's going to pursue submissions heavily throughout the course of this fight. And Brad will touch him up a little bit, but I don't think he's going to be able to put him out. And GM3 will find something eventually. If not, he's just going to spend a lot of time hugging Brad Tavares up against the cage. So that'll still win him the fight. So I'm going to go Gerald Meerschaert. What do we got next?
I just realized Gerald Meerschaert literally has the word "shart" in his last name, and how we have not had some wordplay after some of his appearances on there is a real miss. Real miss.
Let's see what Thomas Manzanero had to say about that one real quick. Yeah, I can't decide if to play I believe the plus he's referring to over 1.5 rounds in the GM3 Tavares fight or the Romeus Holy fight. I like it better for the GM3
I
fight.
agree.
Yeah. Because that Romeus one, I mean, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but Holy, that's very interesting. All right, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Martin Buday. What do you think, Tom?
I'm going with, and this isn't going to be surprising, I'm going with Kennedy Nzechukwu, the African savage here. I think Martin Buday has a who's who of poor performances that he's been able to get wins against over his UFC career. He got a split decision win over Lucas Brzeski, which I'm not gloating about. A decision win over Jay Collier, submission by Kimura, Josh Parisian. These are not guys that you are proud to have victories over. Sure, I guess they're victories inside of the UFC, no less. But you have a loss over Shamil Gaziev by knockout. He's got a win over Andrei Arlovsky, split decision 8 months ago. Guy is 45 years old as Andrei Arlovsky is. To squeak out a win by split decision is essentially a loss. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can have wins that are really losses that are really wins, ties that are whatevers. And I think that's really a loss for Martin Buday. And I'm really not happy with any of these wins on his record here. Kennedy Nzechukwu, he is 3-2 over his last 5. Those losses are to Justin Jacoby, who is, a kickboxer by trade. You have a loss to Ovin Samprou. That's another one, split decision loss. I think it was really close. I don't exactly remember it, but I think it was really close and potentially a bad decision there. Probably should have won far more decisively against OSP at this point in OSP's career. Then you come back with 2 really good wins. Chris Barnett knocked him out. Probably should. Chris Barnett doesn't have much of a gas tank or, usually just kind of gives up, especially in this fight, knee to the body and the punches. Lucas Brzeski. Thing is, Kennedy Nzechukwu has looked really, really good against, some subpar competition, yes, but he's looked really good. The way he's mixed up his combinations, used his length, used his power, picked his shots. He's looked a lot better than what I've seen Martin Buday. So for that reason, I think minus 295 is still a pretty good line to get him at. He's a little bit of a lighter fighter here. You remember Martin Buday at 6'4", Kennedy Nzechukwu is 6'5". He's going to have a reach advantage, but Martin Buday is a lot of a heavier set. He's not a well-built heavyweight, whereas Kennedy Nzechukwu is far more athletic looking and uses that to his advantage. So the pick is Kennedy Nzechukwu.
Yeah, the move up to heavyweight's definitely been good for Kennedy. I'm going with Kennedy Nzechukwu as well at minus 295, heavily voted upon on Tapology and heavily agreed upon by Tom and myself. Martin Buday, like you said, the who's who of the bums of the heavyweight division. Kennedy was starting to fight those guys. And, listen, I call those guys bums. Don't jump in the comments and call me a bum. God forbid. But, dude, look at the guys that he's fighting. His last one was against Andrei Arlovsky. Andrei Arlovsky is no longer with the UFC. He's now fighting on, bare knuckle cards or something somewhere in the world. Shamil Gaziev, a loss. Shamil Gaziev, not bad. Shamil Gaziev, he's not bad. Some might say he's decent. And then Josh Parisian, Jake Collier, Lucas Brzeski, all guys that you named. This is a step up for Kennedy in terms of heavyweight competition. But, I think Kennedy's going to get it done here. He's light, agile. He's a guy that moved up to heavyweight and looks like he did it intelligently. Stopped cutting weight to go down to light heavyweight, fighting comfortably, moving around well, moving better than a lot of other heavyweights, light on his feet, long, good teep kick right up the middle, nice body work, good leg kicks, very intelligent, kind of boring at times, to be completely honest, very boring at times because of how intelligent and calculated and pick apart he is. For all those reasons, I'm going to go with Kennedy to win an intelligent fight. What do we got next?
All right. Next, we got, if my computer is going to load up here, we have what our friend Thomas was asking about, Kentavious Romanes over Chang Ho Lee. Both of these guys have a very similar fighting style. Probably a similar grappling, similar striking. It's a close fight here, as you can see, minus 165 to plus 135 for Kentavious Romanes. Are you not entertained is the nickname. Gotta say a little bit wordy on that. You look at the last 5 outside of the UFC. He's got a submission win by armbar, a loss from Ramon Tavares by TKOs and hammer fists. Goes outside of the UFC, gets another submission via armbar, back to the Contender Series, decision win, and then debuts against Gaston Bolanos 4 months ago, unanimous decision loss there. So already not living up to the name. 5'4", so he's going to be the smaller guy here, but reach advantage about the same. Looking at Chang Ho Lee, he's got a loss. Sim Kai Zhang 3-0 via decision 2 years and 10 months ago on Brave. And then he's got a win over Chang Hin Shin by ground and pound, another win by ground and pound, another win by ground and pound on the road to the UFC. I believe he was a season 2 road to UFC winner here. Split decision win over Long Zhao on his UFC debut just over 9 months ago. Both of these guys roughly the same age. This is going to be a tight one. I'm going to side with Chang Ho Lee, fighter out of South Korea, has a lot of pride for his country and in being, I think, only the 21st or the 22nd Korean fighter to make it to the UFC. I think he, at this point in his career, has accomplished a little bit more success. And I just think he's got just a slightly larger drive and gas tank to get this one done. 86% of Tapology is going for him, which maybe helps sway some people in picking it. I think Thomas was probably spot on and maybe picking these two, maybe to go over 1.5 rounds. But given that, we've seen Chang Ho Lee finish fights before via his ground and pound, I think that gives him an edge and makes me maybe a little bit concerned that, you might get something like that early in this fight. Chang Ho Lee had been quoted before saying like, hey, you can have all the measurables you want, but things are different when you fight me. And that may be true. I think he just goes out there with a certain level of tenacity that makes me want to side with him. And maybe makes me stray away from him finishing it, early in the fight. So I think I would go with GM3 on the over, and I'd probably, you know what? It's probably a safe bet. If you have 1.5 rounds, probably safe over on both of these. The reason I think GM3 is maybe a little bit more safe is because we've seen Chang Ho Lee finish people outside of the UFC. We haven't seen it happen inside of the UFC before, and we've seen Cartavius Romanus, have that decision loss. So I don't know. I think up to this point, one guy can finish, another guy has a solid chin, but with all that being said, Chang Ho Lee is going to be the pick here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have not really had a hard time. I haven't really lost much when I'm picking these guys from the road to the UFC. These Asian guys coming out of Korea, Japan, stuff like that. That was like the big Asian UFC tournament, almost like their version of the Ultimate Fighter. It was pretty interesting, pretty cool. Lots of future big stars came out of there, and Chang Ho Lee was pretty good in road to the UFC. A lot of those cards weren't really like, they were kind of like Contender Series cards in a way. So, and this is so close to the main event for a reason. I think they really want to start showcasing that talent that they acquired over in Asia. So, yeah, give me Chang Ho Lee. I like him here. Get it done.
And one other thing too is we have a loss. I mentioned it briefly on the Contender Series for Cortavius Ramius. I think I've said his name differently every single time I've pronounced it. But either way, he's got a loss via TKO, left hook down to hammer fists on the ground. And we've seen a couple of ground and pound victories by Chang Ho Lee. So maybe that might give me the slight edge to Chang Ho Lee, not only to get this one done, to win more dominant rounds if it does go to decision, but, to maybe shy away just a touch from that over, because you never know if someone can land, drop a guy, and we've seen finishes of that way from Chang Ho Lee. We've seen Cortavius be finished that way. So to give me just a little bit of pause there, but let's move on up the card now onto Joanderson Brito taking on Pat Sabatini. What do you think about this one, Keith?
Yeah, I'm going with Brito here because I really like his striking. His striking is very it almost reminds me of Jose Aldo to some degree. Like, his hands are really fast and his leg kicks are really sick. I'll always remember when he kicked a hole in Jack Shore's leg and basically just, it looked like Jack Shore had like a nasty pimple on the end of his calf, and Joanderson Brito put like a perfect circle right on the front of his shin, and it was nasty. Lots of blood. I think the fight might have gotten stopped because of that. And so I like his striking a lot. He's got really fast hands. That last loss that he had against William Gomi is forgivable. I don't think Pat Sabatini is on his level. Jonathan Pierce won by a ninja choke. Weston Wilson Lucas Alexander, he can do it all. He's got a lot of striking and submission victories. And yeah, I just like him. He's very well rounded. Actually, see, sometimes he can be the smaller guy, but 5'8's not like too small for a 145er, but he's the same size as Pat Sabatini here, and he's got the longer reach. I think that he's quicker than Pat Sabatini. I think he's gonna be lighting him up with the jab and the leg kick a lot throughout this fight. He gets a little creative when he gets fun. He gets in the zone. I think actually, look at this. Thomas Manzanero. Look at that. I got Brito by TKO. Agreed. I got Joe Anderson Brito by TKO. That's my pick. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, for me, it boils down to the fact that Brito is from shoot the box and Pat Sabatini is, predominantly a grappler. We've seen Pat Sabatini be knocked out a couple of times and fairly recently, within the last couple of years. Diego Lopez, obviously forgivable, but Anderson Brito, that shoot the box style where it's, something about that gym. I think it's because they fight a lot, you know what I mean? And when they get into that flow state, they are, pretty hard to beat. And I think that's what I think Anderson Brito is going to be against a guy like Pat Sabatini. Obviously, having the Brazilian background, you're going to have some decent takedown defense and be at least solid on the ground. And I think because of that, it's going to present a challenge for Pat Sabatini. If it ends up being on their feet, you're going to see Brito eat up those legs a little bit. And then once those legs have Pat Sabatini unable to take a takedown, unable to kind of defend himself well, Anderson Brito is going to, really eat. And I think, having so many finishes by TKO for Brito and being finished by TKO, twice in his last 5 fights for Pat Sabatini, especially as the older fighter here. I think we got to go with Anderson Brito to get this one done. Thomas chiming in again. I'm French and Brito didn't lose to go me. Hey, if we're talking about, not picking homers, Good for you for not siding with your countrymen there. But at the end of the day, I think Anderson Brito is just in his last few fights overall, as his UFC career has shown that he is definitely an aggressive fighter and somebody that's really interesting to watch. And I don't know that we've seen the same from Pat Sabatini, especially when it comes to fighting strikers here. So I think everything is kind of slanted towards Brito in this one. And, a little bit longer length, a little bit faster, hits harder, and obviously a more accomplished striker. There's a reason that 85% of the people on Tapology are 92% rather going with Brito to get this one done. So
and he's also got a really good takedown defense himself and a really nasty submission game too. So even if it does go to the ground, I still have faith in him. But I do like the TKO pick quite a bit. What do we got?
Main event time.
Main event. Josh Emmett versus Lerone Murphy. I'm just going to get my pick out of the way. Only 33% of the people on Tapology are going with him. He's a plus 205 underdog. I'm taking my bald brother, Josh Emmett, to get it done here. The guy's 19-4. For some reason, when I think about his record and when I think about him as a fighter, I imagine him having way more losses. And his losses are to some pretty good guys. Most recently, out of his last 5, his 2 losses come to Ilia Topuria and Yair Rodriguez. Both excellent fighters. Obviously, Ilia Topuria just vacated the featherweight belt. Now there's an opening. This is a big featherweight fight. Don't be surprised if this is almost like a number 1 contender fighter up there, in terms of ranking movement, because you have Volk fighting Diego Lopez pretty soon. So this is a big fight. Lerone Murphy making his way up through the UFC. Most recently a win over Dan Ige, before that Edson Barboza, Josh Kulabau, Gabriel Santos, Makwan Amirkhani, but those last 2 really stick out to me quite a bit. Guy doesn't really have a lot of finishes on his record, whereas Josh Emmett, his fights are ending in a finish. They're ending with somebody, except for his Calvin Kattar fight and his Dan Ige fight, but a lot of his fights end in somebody going to sleep or tapping. And he's got extremely, extremely heavy hands. He did touch up Ilia. He hurt Ilia a little bit in their fight. I think he's going to close the distance on Lerone Murphy at some point and land something heavy. I think over 5 rounds, it's going to be a really tough fight. Josh Emmett's a vet of the game. He's got really great wrestling as well. I believe he's a wrestler by trade and then moved into the UFC. And he's just super complete in his game and his overhands and his hands in general, but his overhands in particular are so powerful that, all it takes is one mistake and you're lights out against Josh Emmett. So I'm going to go with Josh Emmett. I like the dog money here. Maybe Lerone Murphy takes him to a decision. Maybe he grinds it out for 5 rounds and really drags things out. But I don't think he's had a 5-round fight in the UFC either, and Josh Emmett has. So, yeah, Josh Emmett, the experienced vet with super heavy hands. And he's not old just yet. Well, he's 40. He is old, but he doesn't fight like it. So give me Josh Emmett. What do you think, Tom?
So Murphy has a 5-round main event win over Edson Barboza, which is, obviously predominantly striking fight of the night there. So with that being said, I think age is going to be the most impacting factor in this fight. You mentioned it at the end there. Josh Emmett is 40 years old, and even though that power doesn't move as you get older, and power's the last thing to go, speed is one of the first few things to go. I think Josh Emmett has taken a ton of damage in his career, and his chin has been some of his strongest points. At some point, that does crack, and against a younger, quicker fighter in Lerone Murphy, who, granted, he doesn't fight all of that often, although it seems more often now than I guess I remember. I remember he couldn't get a fight during COVID. We're talking 1.5 year and 8 months ago, and then fought 10 months ago against Edson Barboza, 4 months ago against Dan Ige, which is a good decision victory there. I like Murphy. I'm going to be boring. I think that he's going to be younger. He's going to be a little bit quicker. I think we're going to see a little bit more of a diminished Josh Emmett. Remember, that was a little over a year ago since we've seen him. 39 to 40 is certainly a big jump. And for a guy who carries that much weight, I would expect him to maybe have a little bit more of a challenge on that weight cut. So he's coming in a little bit more drained. I think everything just gets harder once you're 40. And people who aren't prime time athletes say that. So I can only imagine the drop off as a prime time athlete, fighting some guy 7 years you're younger. He's fought twice since you fought more recently. So he's in the throes of things. You do make a good point that he is a grappler by trade, but you got to be quick in order to shoot those hips back. I don't think we're going to see a lot of takedowns either by Lerone Murphy. So unless he tries to just feel really confident in style on Josh Emmett, which I don't anticipate happening because Josh Emmett is a really good fighter. So even at 40 years old, I just think there's too much in the corner of Murphy to get it done. He's younger, he's faster, he's probably, he's got experience winning late decisions. And a lot of these English fighters, some people may call it boring, some people may call it smart, but I just think they find a way to not put themselves in dangerous positions. That's why it was so crazy a couple weeks ago when Leon Edwards was just getting ragdolled in different positions because he's normally so careful, unless you talk about the very end of the Nate Diaz fight where he got hit and wobbled a little bit. Usually these English fighters just find a way to stay away from people. And I think to his credit or to his safety, Murphy's going to do the same thing here against an older Josh Emmett. And that's why Josh is plus 205. I don't think he's a bad bet because, like you said, he's got heavy hands and, he has finished, a bunch of people in his career. You look at recently, didn't finish Dan Ige, split decision with Calvin Kattar, and did knock out Bryce Mitchell. But Bryce Mitchell's been on a slide ever since he's came out with some conspiracy theorists, or I don't know if he's, now – we used to not hear too much from him, just some crazy things here and there. And the more he's decided to broadcast himself, the less he's performed well in the UFC. I don't know if there's a correlation there or what, but that win doesn't necessarily age as well as it could have or it looked at the time for Josh Emmett. So I think there's just too much in the corner for Murphy to get me to pick Emmett. So I'm going with Murphy to get this one done. 15-0. I don't know that this is when he loses that 0 against a 40-year-old Josh Emmett.
Fair. No, absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. I just think, those hands are heavy, and if one connects, that's it. But that's a big if,
fair but boring.
Yeah, you just need that one hand, that one overhand right to land precisely, and that's the fight. Will that happen? Probably not, but I'm willing to take that bet. Pick a rundown time.
All right, you're up.
All right. Starting way at the bottom, we got, not at the bottom, but start of the main card. I'm going with Torres Finney over Robert Valentin, Gerald Mearshart over Brad Tavares, Kennedy Nzechukwu over Martin Buday, Chang Ho Lee over Cortavius Romius. Yo Anderson Brito over Pat Sabatini, and Josh Emmett over Lerone Murphy. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I think I'm behind you by 2 or 3, maybe more picks. And I don't think that this is going to be the card where I'm going to make up for it because we got so much in common here. I'm going with Torres Finney over Robert Valentin, GM3 over Brad Tavares. I'm going with Kennedy Nezchikwu over Martin Boudet, Chang Ho Lee over Cortavius Ramios, Brito over Sabatini, and Murphy over Emmett. I guess we deviated on 2, so if I hit on both of those, I could catch you, but who knows? I've been pretty bad to start 25. Hopefully, this is the card we turn it around.
It's okay because you had so much success in the years prior that it's okay to start off a little bit slow this year. We are still only in March. Well, no, I'm sorry, April. Today's April 1st. It's the first of the month. Well, first card in April. When's April's pay-per-view? That's coming up soon. I believe that's the Volk Diego Lopez one, right?
Yeah, when I was researching this one, that's all I was seeing. So we got let's see. We got this one this weekend. Next weekend, we got UFC 314 on the 12th. Volk versus Diego Lopez. April Fool's joke was Volk had to pull out because he injured his finger cooking something. But
oh, that's funny. The cooking something part is funny. That would have been horrible if he actually pulled out because if
yeah, no, I'm like, why even put that out into the ether?
Dude,
shut that shit down.
If Volk pulls out, who steps in?
He's the one who steps in. Yeah.
So where do you go from there?
I don't know. You definitely can't give Michael Chandler a pay-per-view. God, that guy sucks.
No, and the last thing you were talking about too. Oh, I forgot that he's on this card. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. And
I mean, you need another, at least one more fight here, dude. Like a 4-fight main card. You're gonna charge me $80.
Yeah, that's a quick main card. Didn't somebody drop out? Wasn't there one fight that got canceled? Oh, there's a few fights that got canceled. But what was like the big? What do we have? What does that say? Gilbert Burns versus who?
Gilbert Burns versus Michael Morales. I don't think was ever really signed. Pantoja versus Carl France maybe wasn't signed. Sarukian versus Chandler. Which is why Patty ended up stepping in. Neil pulled out against Carlos Prates. So
yeah. Oh, that just got canceled. Yeah, so they're gonna just slot something in. But I didn't want to bring it up when you had talked about Bryce Mitchell before, but dude, he's fighting fucking Gene Silva. That's insane. That's gonna be a wild one. He's gonna get fucking murdered again. This guy's just gonna be like, there's gonna be a highlight reel, like a reverse highlight reel of Bryce Mitchell just getting killed by other people.
Oh, here you go. Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull. That's gonna be on your main card.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah, that is a main card worthy fight. And then you have Pitbull trying to dig up the old beef with Michael Chandler, and that's gonna be interesting. Super soap opera like leading into this card. So that one's exciting. I'm very excited to talk about that one with you next week then. So that's appointment television. That's definitely appointment television. Saturday, be glued to your television, and then maybe like Sunday, Monday. No, not Sunday, but maybe like Monday, Tuesday, be glued to YouTube and follow us here. The best way to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on Spotify, Twitter, at Pickin' Fights Keith, at Pickin' Tom, at _Pickin' Winners. Right. So that's everything. Thomas, thank you for being here. Sorry to just jump through there, but thanks for the tips and ideas for this next card, guys. Definitely thinking of betting on the GM3 fight. Well, if you do bet responsibly. We're not experts. Don't sue us if you lose all your money. Okay. Do not go crazy like that. Andrew Nance, LFG. So we had some fun people here in the comments with us today. If you are here, jump in the chat. We love chatting with the chat, as you can see. Other than that, am I missing anything, Tom?
No. Bet responsibly and let's go pick some winners.
Bye.